This is Locked On's 2025 NHL Top 100 Players, as voted on by the local hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the release of the Locked On Podcast Network's NHL Top 100 Players. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Sports Today, and over the next hour, we will reveal the list, get insight from our local hosts, and make several fan bases pretty angry. Over the past several weeks, our stable of local and national NHL hosts have been voting for the players they feel have earned spots on this list. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On top, perhaps no surprise, Connor McDavid hits number one. First time in 5 seasons he didn't lead the league in any major offensive category. Still the highest scorer in the NHL this decade with 66 more points than second. This guy is an alien. Connor McDavid lands at number one on the list. And is there even a question who the best player in the world is? Nick Zareras has thoughts.
Are we surprised? Connor McDavid was named the best player in the NHL as part of Locked On's NHL 100 project. And I'm here to wax poetically about the best hockey player I have ever seen. When it comes down to it, when all is said and done, there isn't an argument for me. McDavid's singular ability to play the game at such a blistering speed, foot speed wise, and then his ability to process, to read, to diagnose what's happening in front of him and make plays where it feels like the stick and the puck are just extensions of his body, that it's the most natural thing in the world, that he can move the puck that way, that he can skate that fast. His singular ability to pull defenders towards him like he is a planet with a sense of gravity. The Oilers ask a lot of Connor McDavid, but as we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, this guy, when the lights are on bright, can get to that level. Scored the game winner, the tournament winner, I should say, in the Four Nations face-off for Canada. Of course, won the Conn Smythe 2 years ago on a losing effort. The Oilers are very fortunate to have Connor McDavid. And speaking of, they need to get that contract situation rectified ASAP if they would like to remain Stanley Cup contenders.
Number 2, Nathan MacKinnon from the Avalanche became one of only 12 players in NHL history with 3 straight 110-point seasons and led the league with 84 assists while finishing top 5 in Hart voting for the 3rd straight season. At number 3, Leon Draisaitl from the Oilers led the league in goals with 52, and the only season in the last 7 years he didn't score 100 points was back in 2020-2021. At 4, Cale Makar from the Avalanche became the first NHL defenseman since 2009 to score 30 goals in a season. He won his second Norris and led the NHL in goals, assists, and points by a defenseman. Rounding out the top 5, Nikita Kucherov from the Lightning led the league in assists and points the last 2 seasons. He has 265 points since the start of the 2023 season. Maple Leaf center Austin Matthews checks in at number 6. Although his production went down across the board last season, he was still top 10 in goals created per game. The first goalie hits our list at number 7. Connor Hellebuyck from the Winnipeg Jets became the 8th goalie in NHL history to win the Hart and led the league in basically every major category. The Wild's Kirill Kaprizov scored 56 points in 41 games last season, just signed the biggest contract in NHL history. For 8 years, $136, don't let me shortchange him, $1 million. That doesn't matter for the list, but it's still pretty cool. At number 9, Alexander Barkov from the Panthers won his 2nd straight Selke Award, the 3rd in his career with his 4th straight 70-point season. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL and he is out for the season. Rounding out our top 10, Canucks defenseman Quinn Hughes hits at 10. He's recorded 244 points the last 3 seasons. Only Cale Makar scored more in that span. At 11, Bruins wing David Pastrnak became the first NHL player since 1999 to contribute to 13 straight goals for his team. He led the league in even strength points on the 28th ranked offense in hockey. His 106 points gave the Bruins team lead by 49 points. David Pastrnak checks in at 11 on our big list, and his offensive brilliance keeps him among the league's elite. Ian McLaren weighs in.
David Pastrnak being outside the top 10 on the Locked On NHL's top 100 players list is just absolutely mind-boggling. This is Locked On Boston Bruins host Ian McLaren, and consider this. Over the past 6 seasons, only 2 players have scored more goals than David Pastrnak. Only 4 players have recorded more points, and he ranks 6th in terms of points per game over that span. Last season, with a very limited cast of supporting characters, he had the most points, assists, and goals at 5-on-5 across the NHL. Yes, I get that some defensemen and goaltenders warrant consideration as well, but David Pastrnak is a borderline top 5 player in the NHL today. Yes, even better than the $17 million man from Minnesota, Kirill Kaprizov. It is just absolutely unreal that he's outside the top 10, and I personally won't stand for it.
At number 12, Sidney Crosby still led the Pens with 91 points last season and broke that guy Gretzky, remember him? Broke his record for most points a game season in NHL history. At 13, the Stars' Mikko Rantanen, his 22 points in the 2025 postseason made him the only player in the playoffs who finished in the top 10 in points who didn't also make the Stanley Cup Finals. Mikko Rantanen comes in at 13, a driving force for Colorado's attack. Joey Erickson breaks it down.
Mikko Rantanen comes in at number 13 on the Locked On NHL's top 100 players list, and this feels like the perfect sweet spot for the Moose, right behind Sidney Crosby and right in front of Jack Eichel. I could see an argument to bump him up or down a few spots, but it's one thing for certain we know about Mikko Rantanen. He's an elite NHL superstar. And for those of you that said he was a Nathan MacKinnon merchant, he put that to rest after his postseason performance with the Dallas Stars. Now he has a full training camp under his belt, a full offseason, not having to worry about a new contract. I'm expecting big things from the Moose in his first full year in the Big D. Over 100-point season for his first year in Victory Green. Book it for Mikko Rantanen, one of the best players in the NHL. This is the perfect spot for him, and he's going to help lead the Stars to another deep playoff run.
Golden Knights' Jack Eichel set new career highs in points and finished top 10 in assists for the first time in his career. He lands at 14th on our list. His teammate, Mitch Marner, hits at 15 on the list, reached the 100-point plateau for the first time in his career. At 16, Matthew Tkachuk from the Panthers, his 4th straight year of being at least a point a game. He had 57 points in 52 games and also recorded 23 points in 23 playoff games after missing 30 games. Miro Heiskanen from the Stars is at 17 on our list, one of 5 defensemen in NHL history to record 60 or more assists in a season, recorded only 25 points in 50 games this year before injuries. Another goalie on the list, the Rangers' Igor Shesterkin, posted the worst save percentage of his career, but led the league in saves and finished second in shutouts. At 19, Jack Hughes from the Devils, at the time of his injury, led the Devils with 70 points in 62 games, and he's recorded, get this, 351 points before turning 25. At 20, Rasmus Dahlin from the Sabres is one of just 2 defensemen in Sabres history to score 20 goals in a season. This year, the Sabres were plus 20 with him on the ice, minus 16 when he was off it. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. At 21, the Lightning's Braden Point, in his 3rd straight season, surpassing both 40 goals and 80 points, plus he led the NHL in shooting percentage. At 22, Victor Hedman from the Lightning finished in the top 5 of Norris voting for the 7th time in his career, but the first time since the 2021-2022 season. He became the first Lightning player in history to reach 600 assists. Victor Hedman ranks 22, still anchoring Tampa Bay's blue line after all these years. Nick Morgan gives his perspective.
Nick Morgan here with Locked On Lightning, reacting to the news that Victor Hedman comes in at number 22 on the Locked On NHL's top 100 player list, number 5 among defensemen. And I think it's a sign that my fellow Locked On NHL hosts, just like a lot of the NHL, is underestimating just how much Victor Hedman still has in the tank. You look at the players ahead of him right now. Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, no arguments there. But then you look at the next two, Miro Heiskanen and Rasmus Dahlin. I just think Victor Hedman's better than them still right now. Look, I know Victor Hedman did not have a good season a couple of years ago, but had a big bounce back year last year. And while he's not exactly a spring chicken, to me, he still has the skating, the awareness, and the length to be an elite defenseman in the NHL. That's why I think he's ranked a little too low on this list, but that's just my take.
Rangers left wing Artemi Panarin hits at 23. And speaking of hitting, he hit the 80-point plateau for the 4th straight year, but it was the first year he was held under 90, and it was a 31-point drop-off from his 2023 season. At 24, William Nylander from the Maple Leafs recorded his 3rd straight 40-goal season and 4th straight 80-point season. Blue Jackets defenseman Zach Werenski lands at 25 on the list, setting franchise records for goals, assists, and points last season, plus finishing 2nd in the Norris and 7th in Hart voting. At 26, the legendary Alex Ovechkin. You guys know who that is. He set the new goals record. Did you hear about that one? Finished 3rd in the NHL with goals at 44, the 15th time he has finished in the top 5. Let me repeat that. It is the 15th time he has finished in the top 5 in goals. Sam Reinhart from the Panthers lands at 27 on our list. He's the only player in the league last year to be top 10 in goals and be a Selke finalist. Since the start of the 2023 season, only Austin Matthews has scored more goals. Hurricanes center Sebastian Aho makes the 28th spot on our list. He led the Canes in points for the 2nd straight year and the 7th straight season, scoring at least 5 game-winning goals. Jets center Mark Scheifele lands here at 29, became the Thrashers and Jets all-time leading goal scorer and set a new career high in points at age 31. Speaking of 31, let's set the 30s off here with Andrei Vasilevsky, the goalie for the Lightning. He, of course, checks in at number 30 on our list. He became the fastest goaltender in NHL history to 300 career wins. At 31, it's Jake Ottinger from the Panthers. He finished in the top 6 in the NHL in wins for the 3rd straight year. Predators defenseman Roman Josi lands at 32 on the list. He became the Preds' all-time leader in games played and the first Swiss player to reach 500 NHL assists. At 33, Islanders goalie Ilya Sorokin, who tied for the 2nd most shutouts in Islanders history. He finished 5th in losses and saves and became the 17th goalie to score an NHL goal. Ilya Sorokin lands at number 33, one of the league's premier goaltenders. Gil Martin has his insight.
Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders here. Ilya Sorokin comes in 33rd in the Locked On ranking of the top 100 players in the NHL, and that's a little bit of a surprise considering the fact that Sorokin had an off year last year and really the year before. But I think there's a number of reasons why Sorokin remains so highly regarded. Number one, just a couple of years ago, he was a legitimate Vezina finalist. Number two, people realize that he's playing in front of a team that struggles offensively, so he doesn't get a lot of goal support, and struggled to defend as well. A lot of injuries on the Islanders, and he's kept them in games. So clearly, the struggles of the New York Islanders, not significantly the fault of Ilya Sorokin, and people are kind of seeing through the struggles and seeing the quality underneath.
At 34, Sabre center Tage Thompson, who had his 2nd straight season with over 40 goals, hits our list. He had 37 even strength goals, which led the league. At 35, Jake Ensel from the Lightning entered the NHL top in goals for the first time in his career. At 36, Tim Stützle from the Senators had his 3rd straight 70-plus point season. and is actually the highest scoring German-born player through 300 NHL games. At 37, Brady Tkachuk from the Senators recorded his 100th multi-point game this year, 5th in Sens history, and the first player in NHL history to score 37 goals and 290 hits in a season. Charlie McAvoy from the Bruins is our 38th player on the list, set a career low in points last season while missing 32 games with an AC joint injury, and is now stuck on 300 career points. At 39, the Rangers' Adam Fox, he recorded his 4th straight 50-point season, and in 2024 became the second fastest defenseman to get to 30 playoff assists. Number 40, Nico Hischier from the Devils led the Devils in scoring percentage and recorded 29 power play points while setting a new career high in goals with 35. His teammate, Jesper Bratt, is our 31st player. He broke Scott Stevens' 31-year-old Devils franchise record for assists in a season with 67. At 42, the Jets' Kyle Connor ranked both 7th in the NHL in goals and points. At 43, Josh Morrissey from the Jets, it was his 3rd straight year with at least 60 points. At 44, Sam Bennett from the Panthers, he won the Conn Smythe by leading the playoffs in goals with 15 and in penalty minutes. Oilers defenseman Evan Bouchard is the 45th player on the board here. He became the second fastest defenseman to get to 50 playoff assists. It only took him 60 games, only behind Bobby Orr. Took him 59 games, and he is the second highest playoff points per game by a defenseman, again, only behind Bobby Orr. Brandon Hagel from the Lightning is the 46th player on the list. He set a new NHL record for most goals in a season without a power play goal. At 47, the Panthers' Sergei Bobrovsky finished top 5 in wins, tied Tony Esposito for 10th all-time in wins in 2025, and became the quickest goalie to 400 wins. The Blues' Robert Thomas lands at 48. He led the Blues in points for the 2nd straight year and cracked the top 10 in the NHL in assists. Golden Knights defenseman Shea Theodore is here at 49, set a career high in assists and points, and 38 of his 57 points came at even strength. Has still not played a full season, so arrow could even be pointing up. At 50, Lucas Raymond from the Red Wings set new career highs and led the Detroit Red Wings with 80 points, only the second Red Wing since, that guy named Yzerman, to lead his team in points before turning 23. All right, halfway through the list. Now, is your favorite player going to land in the second 50 here? Let's start with 51. Jacob Slavin from the Hurricanes has finished top 20 in Norris voting every full season of his career. 2025 was the 3rd season he finished top 10. At 52, the Wild's Matt Boldy set a new Wild franchise record with 10 game-winning goals and eclipsed 70-point plateau for the first time in his career. He led Minnesota in power play points. At 53, Jake Sanderson from the Senators set a new career high in goals, assists, and points, finishing in the top 10 of Norris voting for the first time in his career. Jake Sanderson hits the list at number 53, a young defenseman already making waves. Ross Levitan has more.
Jake Sanderson comes in at number 53 on our Locked On NHL top 100 players right now. And while I'm not necessarily surprised by his placement, I do think it's going to age foolishly rather quickly. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators, and Sanderson had an unbelievable second half of the season. The 22-year-old former 5th overall pick was a late addition to Team USA at the Four Nations and brought the confidence from a great tournament there, including a goal in the championship game, into a second half offensive burst where he was 5th among all NHL defensemen in scoring and brought it into the playoffs where he scored the biggest goal of the season, holding the Senators from elimination in Game 4 in overtime. Sanderson is one of the fastest defensemen in the league. He defends with his feet, his stick. He's a one-man breakout and has all the makings of a player that will win multiple Norris trophies, but with his young age and less experience than some other players higher up, I'd imagine, on this list, it does make sense why he needs to earn more respect around the league. But as the Senators captain Brady Tkachuk says, the doubters, they'll know soon enough just how good Jake Sanderson is.
Stars Jason Robertson hits at 54. He's recorded 80-plus points each of the last 3 seasons and has not missed a regular season game since 2021-2022. At 55, Caitlin Keller from Mammoth finished 11th in the league with 90 points, was on the ice for 50 power play goals for UCH this year. At 56, Devin Taves from the Avalanche, among the 16 defensemen who averaged at least 20 points of even strength ice time per game. Taves led the NHL with a plus 29 even strength goal differential. At 57, Elias Peterson from the Canucks. It's the first time in a season he played 60 or more games where he had a negative plus minus. His 57-point drop from 102 2 years ago is the biggest drop off in the NHL during that span. At 58, JT Miller from the Rangers was the only player in the NHL to record 70 points and 160 hits. At 59, Nick Suzuki from the Canadiens set new career highs in points and was a plus player for the first time in his career. At 60, Philip Forsberg from the Wild saw his point production dip by 18 and his plus minus go down from 16 to minus 27, yet he was still 5th in the NHL in shots. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. At 61, Seth Jarvis from the Hurricanes, who tied career highs in points, led the Canes in goals, and tied a Canes franchise record for shorthanded goals in a season with 5. Red Wings' Dylan Larkin hits at 62. He's recorded 65 points for the 5th straight year. He's the first Red Wing since Zetterberg to score 20 goals in 4 straight seasons. At 63, speaking of the Red Wings, Morris Seider, he's 5th among NHL defensemen in hits and 7th in block shots. At 64, maybe you've heard of him, Connor Bedard. He became the 14th player in NHL history to record a 30-assist season twice as a teenager. At the halfway point of the season, he was last in league in faceoff percentage at 32%. Connor Bedard earns the number 64 spot. The hype is very real. Jack Bushman reacts.
Chicago Blackhawks star forward Connor Bedard checks in at number 64 on the Locked On NHL's current top 100 players list. And I think this is a pretty fair assessment of Bedard thus far. And while it is a little bit disappointing that this is as high as he's climbed through his first 2 NHL seasons, considering he had the generational talent label and all the hype that followed him coming into the league. But if you've actually been watching Bedard these last 2 years, then you know the kid is on the right track. He's been the leading goal scorer and point getter for the Blackhawks as an 18 and 19-year-old coming without a real top liner alongside him. And there's no doubt in my mind that Bedard is going to start climbing higher and higher on this list as the Blackhawks start to put some more talent around him and as he continues to take major strides of his own. I just see this as bulletin board material that should get Connor Bedard fired up heading into his 3rd NHL season.
Star center Rupe Hintz is 65 on our list. He's the 4th among active players in career shooting percentage. At 66, Thomas Harley from the Stars ranked in the top 10 in hockey in defensive point shares and plus minus and reached 50 points for the first time in his career. At 67, Joel Eriksson Ek from the Wild became the 2nd Wild player to score 4 goals in a game before missing time this season. Finished top 10 in Selke voting the last 4 seasons before 2024-2025. At 68, Macklin Celebrini from the Sharks was the only rookie to lead his team in scoring last season with 63 points. At 69, nice, Matthew Barzal from the Islanders. Despite only playing 30 games last year, Barzal scored 100 points in 100 games since the start of 2023. At 70, Gustav Forsling for the Panthers ranked 8th in the NHL in plus minus and has led the NHL in defensive point shares the last 2 seasons. At 71, Kirill Marchenko from the Blue Jackets led CBJ in goals with 31 in plus minus and was 2nd in points. Also recorded his first career hat trick. At 72, UC Saros from the Predators led the NHL in games started and shots against, plus had a franchise record 14-point streak last season and recorded his 200th career win. At 73, Martin Necas from the Avalanche. After the Rantanen trade, Necas recorded 28 points in 30 regular season games. Travis Konechny from the Flyers hits at 74. He led the Flyers in points for the fourth straight year and the fifth time in the last 6 seasons, setting a career high in points and assists. At 75, Linus Ullmark from the Senators finished in the top 10 in the NHL with a career high 91% save percentage and earned his first career playoff shutout. Kickstarting the last quarter of our list at 76, Dylan Strome from the Caps became a point-a-game player for the first time in his career, setting new career highs in goals, assists, and points, beating all previous career highs by double digits. Adrian Kempe from the Kings is our 77th player, set a new career high in goals, assists, and points while earning team MVP, leading the Kings in goals and points. At 78, Vince Dunn from the Kraken has hit double-digit goals and at least 25 assists in each of his last 3 seasons. At 79, Evgeny Malkin from the Penguins had 50 points in 68 games in his 19th NHL season, and as I mentioned, joined the 500 club last year. Evgeny Malkin sits at number 79, still producing at a high level deep into his career. Hunter Hodes and Patrick Damp weigh in.
Hey, everybody. This is Patrick Damp from the Locked On Penguins podcast, and we've got to talk about one of my favorite all-time players, number 79 on the Locked On NHL Top 100, and that is number 71, Evgeny Malkin. It was a down year in 24-25 for Evgeny Malkin, but injuries as well as inconsistent wingers certainly played a role in that. But you could still see the flashes of brilliance from Evgeny Malkin. Certainly not what he once used to be, but is still a very capable top 6 center. And this year could be his final season in the National Hockey League. With the addition of a player like Anthony Mantha and that motivation, I think we're in for a bounce back year in what could be Evgeny Malkin's swan song, one of the best Russians of all time, and a very deserving honor on this list.
At 80, Darcy Kemper from the Kings set a new career high in goals against average, save percentage, and shutouts, and he became the 4th goalie in the last 40 years to be a first-time Vezina finalist at 34 or older. Blues right wing Jordan Kyrou is our 81st player, has now eclipsed 70 points in 3 of the last 4 seasons. Lane Hudson from the Canadiens is our 82nd player, won the Calder Trophy, tied Larry Murphy's rookie assist record with 60, and his 66 points set a new Canadiens rookie defenseman record. At 83, Tom Wilson from the Capitals scored 30 goals for the first time in his career and became just the 3rd player in NHL history to play 800 games before scoring 30 in a season. At 84, Nick Ehlers from the Hurricanes has set a new career high in points each of the last 2 seasons and set a new career highs in assists. At 85, the Bruins goalie Jeremy Swayman started a career high 58 games last year. Some of the advanced numbers not so kind for the first time in his career. His save percentage was 25 points higher at home, though, as opposed to on the road. Maple Leaf center John Tavares is our 86th player. His 38 goals were the most he scored since his last All-Star season in 2018. He picked up his 600th career assist last year. At 88, Andrei Svechnikov from the Hurricanes led the Canes in points per game and has put up 23 points in 26 playoff games over the last 2 seasons. At 89, Anthony Cirelli from the Lightning was a career best plus 30 and a Selke finalist for the first time in his career, but the 3rd time he has finished in the top 5. At number 90, we're getting down to it now. Philip Gustafsson from the Wild. Their goalie ranked 4th in shots against last year. He was also 3rd in saves and 6th in save percentage. At 91, Flames defenseman Mackenzie Weegar recorded the most power play points of his career. At 92, Sharks wing William Eklund led the Sharks in points and was 2nd to Macklin Celebrini in goals. At 93, Cole Caulfield from the Canadiens set a career high mark in goals and in points, eclipsing the 30-goal mark for the first time in his career. Cole Caulfield rounds out the group at number 93, a sniper with plenty left to prove. Ian Boisvert has his take.
Well, the hosts of the other 31 Locked On NHL shows should have some explaining to do. Ian Boisvert here of Locked On Canadiens, coming to you as the Locked On Podcast Network has released their top 100 NHL players, a list we all voted on here as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And Cole Caulfield for the Montreal Canadiens barely squeaks onto this list, 98th overall. Now, I had Cole Caulfield at 46th. Is that too high? Probably. I will be the first one to admit that that's probably too high for a player like this. But if you are to take one key figure away from this argument, please take this. Last season, 24-25, Cole Caulfield had 26 goals at 5-on-5. That is one more than David Pastrnak, and he is tied with Morgan Geekie and Kyle Connor. The only player in the National Hockey League to score more at 5-on-5 than Cole Caulfield last season was Tage Thompson. He had 33 goals. The gap was big between first and second place. Cole Caulfield is also the only one of these players that I just listed who is in the top 10 in expected goals for at 5-on-5, meaning these weren't empty calorie goals. He wasn't just chipping the puck in and watching it go in. Cole Caulfield has established himself as one of the National Hockey League's elite snipers. Last season, career highs in goals and points, 37 goals, 70 points. He's only going to continue to get better, especially on a line that is one of the best in the National Hockey League at 5-on-5 with Nick Suzuki and Juraj Slafkovsky. I think the NHL hosts here at the Locked On Podcast Network got this one wrong, and I think Cole Caulfield will spend this season making sure we all know about it.
Kraken center Jared McCann is 94th on our list, played in all 82 games for the first time in his career, and led the Kraken in scoring with 61 points. At 95, Noah Dobson from the Canadiens. Despite his point production dropping from 70 to 39, he still scored double-digit goals in each of his last 4 seasons. At 96, Matt Duchene from the Stars set a new career high with 52 assists and added 30 goals. He led the Stars in scoring. Mammoth center Logan Cooley is the 97th player on our list. Not only did he have a point increase of nearly 50%, 44 to 65, he did it in 7 fewer games. At 98, Brock Faber from the Wild. Despite being just his second full season, Faber was 4th in hockey in average time on the ice at just 22 years old. Number 99, Erik Karlsson from the Penguins, the only active NHL player with 3 Norris trophies and the only defenseman of the last 30 years to score 100 points in a season. And the last player on our Locked On NHL Top 100, Thomas Hertl, was traded from the Sharks this offseason to the Golden Knights with 484 points in 712 regular season games. Now you've seen the list. Go check out your favorite local Locked On NHL show and join the conversation around your favorite team. Or check out another Locked On show and rile up their fan base in the comments section. If you like the list, we've got a Locked On NBA Top 100, a Locked On NFL Top 100, a Locked On College Football Top 100 for you to check out, and a Locked On Major League Baseball Top 100 coming soon. So make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports today to make sure you don't miss anything. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On's 2025 NHL Top 100 Players, as voted on by the local hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.